very much embittered, and I said to myself, "Your will alone is left to me. I have nothing else." Everything has disappeared, and my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, my will is all that must be left to you. It is symbolized by water. While water appears abundant in seas, rivers, and wells, it seems as if there is no water on the rest of the earth. Yet there is not one point of the earth which is not soaked with water. There are no buildings in which water has not been the primary element for their construction. There is no food in which water does not hold its primary place. Otherwise it would be dry food, which man could not even swallow. The strength that water contains is such and so great that if it had free field to go out of the seashore, it would devastate and terrify the entire earth. My will is more than water. It is true that in certain points, times, and circumstances, it is as though concentrated within most extensive seas, rivers, and wells. But there is no thing, from the greatest to the smallest, in which my will does not flow and hold its primary place, even though hidden, just as the water is hidden in the earth, and although not appearing, it is the one that makes plants vegetate and gives life to their roots. However, when my love will make arise the era of my will, the new era of maximum benefit for creatures, then will the seas and rivers of my volition overflow, and as their gigantic waves will rise, they will sweep everything into my will. But no longer hiddenly. Rather, its roaring waves will make themselves seen by everyone and will touch everyone. And those who will want to resist the current will run the risk of losing their lives. Now, since my will alone has been left to you, you are like water which holds the first place among all goods. And when my volition will flow out of its shores, your will, dissolved within mine, will have its primacy in all things both in heaven and on earth. What more do you want? July 26, 1921. The divine will is more than life for the soul. My sweet Jesus continues to speak to me about his holy will. My daughter, if the sun is the king of the universe, if with its light it symbolizes my majesty, and with its heat my love and justice, to the point that when it finds earth that does not want to dispose itself to fecundity, it ends up withering it, and it renders it sterile with its burning breath. Water can be called queen of the earth because, symbolizing my will, there is no point into which she does not enter, nor is there creature who can live without her. Maybe one could live without the sun, but nobody can live without water. Water enters into everything, even into the veins in the human bowels, as well as into the profound abysses of the earth. In mute silence, it follows its continuous course. One can say that water is not only queen, but it is like the soul of the earth. Without water, the earth would be like a dead body. So is my will. It is not only queen, but more than soul of all created things. It is the life of each heartbeat, of each fiber of the heart. My volition, like water, flows within everything, now remaining silent and hidden, now palpitating and visible. Man can subtract himself from my light, from my love, from my grace, but from my will, never. He would be like one who wanted to live without water. It is true that there may be some crazy one who hates water, but even if he hates it and does not love it, he will be forced to drink it, either water or death. The same for my will. Since it is life of everything, creatures will keep it with them, either with love or with hatred, but even though against their will, they will be forced to let my will flow in them, like blood in the veins, and those who wanted to subtract themselves from my will would be like the suicides of their own souls. But still, my will would not leave them. It would follow the course of justice over them, since it could not follow for them the course of the goods that my volition contains. If man knew what it means to do or not to do my will, all would tremble with fright at the mere thought of subtracting themselves from my will for one single instant. August 9th, 1921. Effects of the acts done in the divine will. Example of the machine. Continuing in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself in the midst of a most extensive sea. I saw a machine, and as the engine moved, water would spurt out from all sides of this machine. Rising up to heaven, these waves of water spouted upon all saints and angels, and reaching the throne of the Eternal One, they poured impetuously at his feet, and then descended again into the depths of the same sea. I remained astonished in seeing this, and I said to myself, "What can this machine be?" And a light which came from that very sea told me, "The sea is my will. The machine is the soul who lives in my volition. The engine is the human will, operating in the divine will. Every time the soul makes her own special intentions in my will, the engine puts the machine into motion, and since my will is life of the blessed as well as of the machine, it is no wonder that my will, which springs out from this machine, enters into heaven and glows with light and glory, spouting upon all up to my throne, and then descends again into the sea of my will on earth, for the good of pilgrim souls. My will is everywhere, and the acts done in my will run everywhere, both in heaven and on earth. They run to the past, because my will existed, to the present, because my will has lost nothing of its activity, to the future, because it will exist eternally. How beautiful are the acts in my will, and since my will contains ever new contentments, these acts are new contentments for the very blessed. They substitute for the acts of the saints which have not been done in my will. They are new graces for all creatures. Afterwards I remained all afflicted because I had not seen my sweet Jesus, and he, moving in my interior, clasped me in his arms, telling me, "My daughter, why are you so afflicted? Am I not the sea itself?" August 13th, 1921. Sadness does not enter into the divine will. The divine will contains the substance of all joys and the fount of all happinesses. I was feeling very afflicted, and my lovable Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, courage. I don't want you afflicted, because for one who lives in my will, the smile of heaven, the contentment of the blessed, the peace of the saints caress the whole of her being. My will contains the substance of all joys, the fount of all happinesses, and one who lives in my will, even in sorrow, feels pain and joy, tears and smile, bitterness and sweetness, kneaded together within her. Contentment is inseparable from my will. You must know that as you think in my will, as you speak, as you work, as you love, etc., you deliver to my will as many children for as many thoughts as you make, or as many words as you say, for as many works and acts of love as you emit. These children multiply to the infinite in my will, and go around throughout heaven and through the entire earth, bringing new joy, new glory and contentment to heaven, and new grace to the earth, going through all hearts, carrying my sighs, my moans, the pleas of their mother who wants them saved, and who wants to give them her life. Now, these children, birthed from my will, in order to be recognized as my children, must resemble and have the same manners of the mother who delivered them. If they look sad, they will be put out of heaven, being told, "Sadness cannot enter our residence." They will not find their way into the creatures, because in seeing them sad, creatures will doubt that they are true legitimate children of my will. Besides, one who is sad does not have the grace to creep into others, to conquer them and dominate them. One who is sad is not capable of heroism and of giving himself for the good of all. Many times these children are aborted, dying during labor, without coming out to the light of the divine will. August 20th, 1921. The acts done in the divine will are new heavens of love and of glory. Continuing in my state of privation and of unspeakable bitterness, my lovable Jesus came forth just a little, and surrounding me with his arms, told me, "My daughter, daughter of my will, I love so much one who lives in my will that I become her custodian, and I keep her sheltered in my own arms. I am jealous that not even one act be lost, because my own life is involved in each act. The fiat released the creation, and from the fiat, creation receives continuous preservation. If my fiat withdrew, it would turn into nothing, and if it remains intact, without changing, it is because it has not moved from my fiat. However, I did not repeat another fiat, otherwise more new heavens, more new suns and stars would come out, one different from the other. On the other hand, in the soul who lives in my will, there is not just one fiat, but repeated fiats. Therefore, as the soul operates in my will, I repeat the fiat, and new heavens, new suns and stars are extended. And since the soul contains an intelligence, these heavens are new heavens of love, of glory, of light, of adoration, of knowledge, forming such a variety of beauty that I myself remain enraptured. The whole of heaven, the saints, the angels, cannot remove their gaze from her, because as they admire the variety of heavens which she contains, more new ones extend, one more beautiful than the other. They see the celestial fatherland copied in the soul who lives in my will. The multiplicity of new things which multiply to the infinite. How could I not keep this soul guarded and not be extremely jealous of her, if just one act of hers is worth more than creation itself? In fact, the heavens, the sun, are without intelligence, therefore they have no value in themselves. All the value is mine. On the other hand, since one who lives in my will contains an intelligence, there is her will that runs within mine, and the power of my fiat uses it as raw material in order to extend these new heavens. Therefore, as the soul operates in my will, she gives me the delight of forming new creations. Her acts are the manifestation of the life of my will, the prodigies of my volition. My repeated fiat, how could I not love this soul? August 25th, 1921. The more knowledge one has about the divine will, the more value his acts acquire. I was fusing all of myself in the holy divine volition, and my Jesus told me, "Daughter of my will, the more you immerse yourself in my volition, the more the circle of your will is enlarged within mine. It is yet true that the acts done in my will fill everything, just as the light of the sun fills the earth. However, by repeating the acts in my will, the circumference of the sun itself becomes larger, and the soul acquires greater intensity of light and heat. As she repeats her acts in my will, her will remains tied to mine as many times, and these knots make many divine rivulets flow over the whole earth, preventing the free course of justice. And yet, O my Jesus, many scourges fill the earth such as to be horrifying. Ah, my daughter, yet one can say that this is still nothing, and if it wasn't for these rivulets, for these knots of the human will made in the divine will, I would look at the earth as if it did not belong to me any more, and therefore I would make chasms open everywhere to swallow it. Oh, how the earth weighs upon me." But he was saying this with such bitterness as to make stones cry. Then he added, "Every time I speak to you about my will, and you acquire new understanding and knowledge, your act in my will receives more value, and you acquire more immense riches. It happens as to a man who possesses a gem, and knows that this gem is worth a penny. He is rich 1 penny. Now, it happens that he shows his gem to a skilled expert, who tells him that his gem has a value of 5,000 liras. That man no longer possesses 1 penny, but he is rich 5,000 liras. Now, after some time, he has the opportunity to show his gem to another expert, even more experienced, who assures him that his gem contains the value of 100,000 liras and is ready to buy it if he wants to sell. Now that man is rich 100,000 liras. According to his knowledge of the value of his gem, he becomes richer and feels greater love and appreciation for the gem. He keeps it in custody more jealously, knowing that the gem is all his fortune, while before he held it as a trifle, yet the gem has not changed. That which it was, so it is now. He is the one who has changed, by understanding the value that the gem contains. Now, the same happens with my will, as well as with virtues. According to how the soul understands their value and acquires knowledge of them, she comes to acquire new values and new riches in her acts. Therefore, the more you know my will, the more your act will acquire value. Oh, if you knew what seas of graces I open between you and me every time I speak to you about the effects of my will, you would die of joy and would make feast as if you had acquired new reigns to dominate. September 2nd, 1921. One who goes out of the divine will goes to meet all miseries. Each additional knowledge prepares the soul for another greater knowledge. I was lamenting to my sweet Jesus because of these blessed writings, which they want to put out. I felt as if I wanted to withdraw from his will, and my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, what? You would want to withdraw from my will? Too late. After you yourself bound yourself in my will has bound you with double chains to itself in order to keep you safer. You have lived as a queen in my will. You have accustomed yourself to living with most delicate and nourishing foods, indomitable by anyone, but dominator of all, even of yourself. You are used to living with all the comforts, immersed in immense riches. If you go out of my will, you will notice immediately that as soon as you go out of it, you will feel misery, coldness, the lost dominion. All goods will disappear from you, and from queen you will become a most miserable servant. So, you yourself, upon feeling the great contrast which exists between living in my will and going out of it, will plunge yourself even more into the depth of my will. This is why I say to you, too late, and then you would take a great contentment away from me. You must know that I acted with you as a king who begins to love a friend who is very dissimilar from him in status, but his love is so great that he has decided to make him similar to himself. Now this king cannot do everything at once and render his friend like himself. Rather, he does it little by little. First he prepares a royal palace for him, similar to his own. Then he sends the adornments to decorate the royal palace. He forms a little army for him. Then he gives him half of his kingdom so as to be able to say, "What you possess, I possess. King am I. King are you." However, each time the king would give him his gifts, he would look at his faithfulness, and giving the gift would be for him an occasion for new contentment, greater glory and honor for himself, and a new feast. If the king had wanted to give to his friend, all at once, that which he has given him little by little, he would have embarrassed his friend, because he was not trained to be able to dominate. But little by little, through his faithfulness, he has been instructed, so everything is easy for him. So I did with you. Having chosen you in a special way to live in the height of my will, I have instructed you little by little, making it known to you. And as I kept making it known to you, I enlarged your capacity, preparing it for another greater knowledge. And every time I manifest to you one value, one effect of my will, I feel a greater contentment, and I make feast along with heaven. Now, as these truths of mine go out, you redouble my contentments and my feasts. Therefore, let me do it. And you plunge yourself more into my will. September 6, 1921. As the truths are known, new union with Jesus is formed. Jesus wants to make known what his will did in his humanity in order to constitute the new generations as heirs of his will and of the effects and the value it contains. I was fusing all of myself in the holy will of my sweet Jesus, and I said to him, "My love, I enter into your will, and here I find all the thoughts of your mind and all those of creatures. I surround your thoughts with my thoughts and with those of all my brothers, and then I unite them together, making them one in order to give you the homage, the adoration, the glory, the love, the reparation of your own intelligence." While I was saying this, my Jesus moved in my interior and standing up told me, "Inseparable daughter of my will, how happy I am in hearing repeated what my humanity did in my will. And I kiss your thoughts in mine, your words in mine, your heartbeat in mine." And as he was saying this, he covered all of me with kisses. Then I said to him, "My life, why do you enjoy so much and make feast every time you manifest another effect of your will?" And Jesus, "You must know that every time I manifest to you one more truth about my will, it is one more bond that I form between you and me and with the whole human family. It is a greater union. It is a tighter link. It is sharing my inheritances. And as I manifest them, I form the deed of donation. And in seeing my children richer and sharing in the inheritance, I feel new contentment, and I make feast. It happens to me as to a father who possesses much land, and this land is unknown to his children. They do not know that they are children of a father so rich. Now, as the children come of age, the father keeps telling them day after day that he possesses such and such farm. On hearing this, the children make feast and cling to the father with a greater bond of love. In seeing the feast of the children, the father makes feast and prepares for them another greater surprise, saying to them, "Such province is mine," and then, "Such kingdom." The children are enchanted, and they not only celebrate, but believe themselves fortunate to be the children of this father. And the father not only makes his possessions known to his children, but he constitutes them heirs of his goods. The same happens to me. Up until now, I have made known what my humanity did, its virtues, its pains, in order to constitute the human family as heir of the goods of my humanity. Now I want to move forward, and I want to make known to it what my will did in my humanity, so as to constitute the new generations as heirs of my will, of the effects and the value it contains. Therefore, be attentive in listening to me, and do not lose anything of the effects and the value of this will of mine, so that you may be the faithful bearer of these goods, the first link of union with my will, and of communication with the other creatures. September 14th, 1921. Each time the soul does her acts in the divine will, she grows more and more in sanctity. Continuing in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus, on coming, told me, "My daughter, each time the soul does her acts in my will, she grows more and more before me in wisdom, in goodness, in power and beauty. In fact, as she keeps repeating her acts in my will, she takes more bites of wisdom, of goodness, etc. And the soul grows with the food from which she feeds herself. This is why in the Holy Gospel it is written that I grew in wisdom before God and before men. As God, I could neither grow nor decrease. My growth was just in my humanity, which, growing in age, came to multiply my acts in the supreme volition, and each additional act I did was additional growth in the wisdom of the Celestial Father. This growth of mine was so true that even creatures noticed it. Each one of my acts ran in the immense sea of the divine will, and as I operated, I nourished myself with this celestial food. It would take too long to tell you about the seas of wisdom, of goodness, of beauty and power that my humanity swallowed in every additional act it performed. The same happens to the soul. My daughter's sanctity in the divine will grows in every instant. There is nothing that can escape from growing, and that the soul cannot let flow in the infinite sea of my will, the most indifferent things. Sleep, food, work, etc. can enter into my will and take their place of honor as agents of my will. If only the soul wants it so, all things from the greatest to the smallest can be opportunities to enter my will, which does not happen with virtues. In fact, if one wants to exercise the virtues, many times the occasion is missing. If the soul wants to exercise obedience, it takes someone who commands her, and it may happen that for days and weeks there is no one to give new orders for her to obey. Therefore, as much as goodwill to obey as she might have, poor obedience will remain idle. The same with patience, humility, and all the other virtues. Since they are virtues of this low world, other creatures are needed in order to exercise them. On the other hand, my will is virtue of heaven, and I alone am enough to maintain the soul every instant in continuous exercise. It is easy for me to keep her up night and day in order to maintain her exercised in my will. September 16, 1921. Jesus mocked by Herod. How these pains are renewed by creatures. Through his acts, Jesus molded our acts in his will. I was doing the hour of the Passion in which my sweet Jesus was in the palace of Herod, clothed as a madman and mocked. And my always lovable Jesus, making himself seen, told me, "My daughter, not only then was I clothed like a madman, sneered at and mocked, but creatures continued to give me these pains. Even more, I am under continuous mockeries, and by all kinds of people. If a person goes to confession and does not maintain his resolutions not to offend me, this is a mockery that he makes of me. If a priest confesses, preaches, administers the sacraments, and his life does not correspond to the words he says and to the dignity of the sacraments he administers, he mocks me as many times for as many words as he says and for as many sacraments as he administers. While I give them new life in the sacraments, they give me scorns and mockeries, and by profaning them, they prepare for me the garment to clothe me as a madman. If superiors command sacrifice, virtue, prayer, and disinterest to their subjects, while they conduct a life of comfort, of vice, and of interest, these are as many mockeries that they make of me. If civilian and ecclesiastical leaders want the observance of the laws, and they are the first transgressors, these are mockeries that they make of me. Oh, how many mockeries they make of me. They are so many that I am tired of them, especially when they put the poison of evil under good. Oh, how they make fun of me, as if I were their amusement and their pastime. But sooner or later justice will make fun of them by punishing them severely. You, pray and repair for these mockeries which grieve me so much, and are the cause for which I do not make myself known for who I am." Afterwards, coming back again, as I was fusing all of myself in the divine will, he told me, "Dearest daughter of my will, I anxiously await your fusions in my will. You must know that as I thought in my will, I kept molding your thoughts in my will, preparing the place for them. As I worked, I molded your works in my will, and so with all the rest. Now whatever I did not do for myself since I did not need it, but for you. This why I await you in my will, that you may come and take the places which my humanity prepared for you, and over my moldings. Come and do yours. Only then am I content, and I receive complete glory when I see you do what I did." September 21st, 1921. Jesus wants to give his goods to his children. Jesus before Caiaphas. The working of the divine will is daylight. As I was in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus on coming told me, "My daughter, in what painful conditions creatures put me. I am like a most rich father who loves his children immensely, but the children, immensely ungrateful, while the father wants to clothe them, refuse his clothes and want to remain naked. The father gives them food, but they want to starve, and if they eat at all, they feed themselves with filthy and vile foods. The father offers them riches, he wants to keep them around himself, he gives them his own residence. But the children do not want to accept anything, contenting themselves with going wandering homeless and poor. Poor father, how many sorrows, how many tears does he not shed? He would be less unhappy if he had nothing to give, but possessing goods and not being able to use them while seeing his children dying is a sorrow that surpasses every sorrow. So I am. I want to give, and there is no one who takes. Therefore, creatures are the cause of my shedding bitter tears and of continuous sorrow. But do you know who dries my tears and turns my sorrow into joy? One who wants to be always together with me, one who takes my riches with love and with filial trust, who eats at my own table and clothes himself with my own garments. To these I give without measure. They are my confidants, and I make them rest upon my lap. After this, I found myself outside of myself, and I could see new revolutions arise among different parties. And since these will be the cause of greater fights, my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, if parties were not formed, true revolutions could not occur, especially against the church. In fact, if that party did not exist, the element against which to fight would be missing. But how many from this party, which apparently is said to be Catholic, are true wolves covered with the mantle of lambs and will give many sorrows to my church? Many believe that with this party religion will be defended, but it will be all the opposite, and the enemies will use it to rail more against it." Afterwards, I came back into myself, and it was the hour at which my beloved Jesus went out of prison and was brought again before Caiaphas. I tried to accompany him in this mystery, and Jesus told me, "My daughter, when I was presented to Caiaphas it was full daylight, and my love toward creatures was so great that on this last day I went out before the pontiff, all disfigured and wounded, to receive my death sentence. But how many pains this sentence would cost me! And I converted these pains into eternal days with which I surrounded each creature so that, by dispelling the darkness from them, each one might find the necessary light in order to be saved, as well as my death sentence at her disposal to find her life in it. Therefore each pain I suffered and each good I did was one more day that I gave to the creature. And not only myself, but also the good which creatures do is always daylight that they form, just as evil is night. It happens as when a person has a light and 10 or 20 people are near him. Even though the light does not belong to all, but to one, the others enjoy the light. They can work, read, and while they enjoy the use of that light, they cause no harm to the person who possesses it. The same is with doing good. It is daylight not only for one soul, but who knows for how many others she can form daylight. Good is always communicative, and my love not only pushed me, but it gave also to the creatures who love me the grace to form as many days for their brothers for as many good works as they do. September 28th, 1921. Jesus is light, and everything that comes from him is light, which, diffusing in the midst of all creatures, becomes life of each one of them. Difference between the sanctity of the divine will and that of virtues, living in the sea or on the earth. Continuing in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus made himself seen close to me, with his heart all in flames, and at each beat of his heart a light came out. These lights surrounded me completely and diffused over the whole creation. I remained surprised, and Jesus told me, "My daughter, I am eternal light, and everything that comes from me is light. Therefore, it is not only my heartbeat that unleashes light, but each one of my thoughts, breaths, words, steps, and each drop of my blood are light unleashed by me, which, diffusing in the midst of all creatures, become life of each one of them, wanting the return of their little lights. In fact, they too are light, because they too were unleashed from within my own light. However, sin converts the work of the creature into darkness. My daughter, I love the creature so much that I conceived her in my breath, and I delivered her on my knees, to let her rest on my lap and keep her safe. But the creature runs away from me, and not feeling her in my breath nor finding her on my lap, my breath calls her continuously. My knees are tired of waiting for her, and I keep searching for her everywhere to have her back with me. Ah, in what constraints of pain and love creatures put me. After this, since I had heard someone speak about humility, and I am convinced that this virtue does not exist in me, nor do I ever think about it. When my sweet Jesus came, I told him of my concern, and he said to me, "My daughter, do not fear. I raised you in the sea, and one who lives in the sea doesn't know much about earth. If one wanted to ask the fish what the earth is like, what its fruits, plants, and flowers are like, if they had reason, they would answer, "We were born in the sea, we live in the sea, the water feeds us, and while others would be drowned in it, we dart and receive life from it. While water would freeze the blood in the veins of other beings, to us it gives warmth. The sea is everything for us. It serves us as room, as bed. We stroll in it. We are the only fortunate beings which don't need to tire themselves in order to find food. Whatever we want is at our disposal. Therefore, we can tell you about the sea, but not about the earth. Water is all we need. In it we find everything. But if instead one asked the same to the birds, these would answer, "We know plants, the heights of the trees, flowers, and fruits." They would tell of how much they toil in order to find a seed to be nourished or a hiding place to be sheltered from cold or rain. The simile of the sea is for one who lives in my will. The simile of the earth is for one who walks along the path of virtues. Therefore, since you live in the sea of my will, it is no wonder that my will alone is enough for you in everything. If water serves and does different offices for the fish, food, warmth, bed, room, and everything, much more so can my will do it in a more admirable way. Even more, in my will virtues are at the most heroic and divine degree. My will absorbs everything and melts everything within itself, and the soul remains absorbed in my will. She feeds herself with it. In it she walks. She knows my will alone, and my will is enough for her in everything. One can say that among all, she is the only fortunate one who does not need to beg for bread. No, but the water of my will inundates her above and below, to the right and to the left. If she wants food, she eats. If she wants strength, she finds it. If she wants to sleep, she finds the softest bed to rest. Everything is ready at her disposal. October 6, 1921. The horror of man in the state of sin, the beauty of man in the state of grace. I was praying and adoring the wounds of my crucified Jesus, and I thought to myself, how ugly sin is for reducing my highest good to such a harrowing state, and my always lovable Jesus, leaning his most holy head upon my shoulder, sighing, told me, "My daughter, sin is not just ugly, but horrible. It is the black point of man. As he sins, he undergoes a brutal transformation. All the beauty I gave him is covered with such ugliness as to be horrible to the sight. And it is not only the sense which sins, but the whole of man runs along with it. So, sin is his thought, his heartbeat, his breath, his motion, his step. His will has dragged man to one single point, and from his whole being he emanates thick darkness that blinds him, and a poisonous air that poisons him. Everything is black around him. Everything is deadly, and whoever approaches him puts himself in a state of danger, horrible and frightening. Such is man in the state of sin." I remained terrified, and Jesus continued, "If man is horrible in the state of guilt, he is also beautiful in the state of grace and of doing good. Good, be it even the tiniest, is the bright point of man. As he does good, he undergoes a celestial, angelic, and divine transformation. His goodwill drags his whole being to one single point. Therefore, good is his thought, his word, his heartbeat, his motion, his step. Everything is light, inside and outside of him. His air is balmy and vital, and whoever approaches him places himself in safety. How beautiful, gracious, attractive, lovable, striking is the soul in grace in doing good, so much so that I myself remain enamored. Each good she does is one more shade of beauty that she acquires. It is a greater likeness to her Creator, which makes her be distinguished as his child. It is divine power that she puts in circulation. All the good she does are spokesmen between heaven and earth. They are the couriers, the electric wires which maintain the communication with God. October 9th, 1921. In the Last Supper, Jesus gave Luisa the place of honor between himself and John. He gave himself as food to all, in order to receive food from all. The will of man is that which makes him more like his Creator. The human will is the depository of all the works of man. I was thinking about the act in which Jesus had the Last Supper with his disciples, and my lovable Jesus told me in my interior, my daughter, while I was having supper with my disciples, I was surrounded not only by them, but by the whole human family. I had all creatures near me, one by one. I knew them all, and I called them by name. I also called you, and I gave you the place of honor between me and John, constituting you the little secretary of my will. And as I divided the lamb in offering it to my apostles, I gave it to all and to each one. That lamb, bled dry, roasted, cut to pieces, spoke about me. It was the symbol of my life and of how I was to reduce myself for love of all. And I wanted to give it to all as delicious food, which represented my passion, because everything I did, said, and suffered was converted by my love into food for man. But do you know why I called everyone and gave the lamb to all? Because I too wanted food from them. I wanted everything they would do to be food for me. I wanted the food of their love, of their works, of their words, of everything. And I, my love, how can it be that our works become food for you? And Jesus, it is not on bread alone that one can live, but on everything to which my will gives virtue of making one live. If bread nourishes man, it is because I want it so. Now, whatever the creature disposes with her will to make of her work, that is the form which it assumes. If with her work she wants to form food for me, she forms food for me. If love, she gives me love. If reparation, she forms reparation. And if in her will she wants to offend me, she makes of her work the knife to wound me and maybe even to kill me. Then he added, the will of man is that which makes him more like his Creator. In the human will I place part of my immensity and of my power, and giving it the place of honor, I constituted it queen of the whole of man and depository of all of his works. Just as creatures have chests in which they keep their things to maintain them secured, the soul has her will in which to keep and secure all that she thinks, says, and does. Not even one thought will be lost. What she cannot do with her eyes, with her mouth, with her works, she can do with her will. In one instant she can will 1,000 goods and 1,000 evils. The will makes her thought fly up to heaven, to the farthest places and deep into the abysses. She might be prevented from working, from seeing, from speaking, but she can do all this in her will. Whatever she does and wants forms an act which remains deposited in her own will. Oh, how the will can be expanded! How much good and how much evil can it not contain? This is why, among all things, I want the will of man, because if I have this, I have everything. The fortress is conquered. October 13th, 1921. All of the words of Jesus are founts which lead and spout toward eternal life. I felt oppressed, thinking that I am forced to say and write even the tiniest things that good Jesus tells me. Then, on coming, he said to me, my daughter, each time I speak to you, I intend to open a little fountain in your heart, because all of my words are founts which lead and spout toward eternal life. But so that these founts may form in your heart, you must also put something of your own. That is, you must chew them thoroughly to be able to swallow them into your heart and open the fount. By thinking about them over and over again, you form the mastication. By telling them to those who have authority over you, and as you are assured that they are my words, you swallow them with no doubt, and you open the fount for yourself, and at the occurrence of your need, you use them, drinking in large gulps from the fount of my truth. By writing them, you open the channels which can serve all those who would like to quench their thirst, so as not to let them die of thirst. Now, by not telling them, you don't think about them, and by not chewing them, You cannot swallow them. So you run the risk that the fount will not be formed and that water will not spring forth. And when you need that water, you will be the first to suffer thirst. And if you do not write them, not opening the channel, of how many goods will you deprive others? Now as I was writing, I thought to myself, it is some time that my sweet Jesus has not been speaking to me about his most holy will, but about other virtues. I feel more inclined to write about his most holy will. I feel more of a taste for it, as if it was something exclusively mine, and his will is enough for me in everything. And my always benign Jesus on coming told me, my daughter, you should not be surprised if you enjoy more and feel more inclined to write about my will. In fact, hearing, speaking, writing about my will is the most sublime thing which can exist in heaven and on earth. It is that which glorifies me the most and takes all goods together and the whole of sanctity all at once. On the other hand, the other truths each enclose its own distinct good. They are drunk sip by sip, climbed step by step, and they adapt to the human way. With my will instead, it is the soul that adapts herself to the divine way. It is not sips that she drinks, but seas, not stairs that she climbs, but flights that she takes toward heaven in the twinkling of an eye. Oh, my will, by just hearing it from you, it brings me so much joy and sweetness. And as I feel surrounded by my will contained in the creature as if by another immensity of mine, I feel such a taste that it makes me forget about the evil of the other creatures. You must know that I have manifested to you great things about my will, which you have not yet chewed well and digested in such a way as to take all the substance and form the whole mass of blood in your soul. Once you have formed all the substance, I will come back again, and I will manifest to you other things more sublime about my will. And as I wait for you to digest them well, I will keep you occupied with the other truths which belong to me, so that if creatures do not want to make use of the sea of the sun of my will in order to come to me, they may use little fountains and channels to come to me and take for their own good the things that belong to me. October 16, 1921. As Jesus was conceived, he made all creatures be reborn in him. As I was in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus made himself seen, showing all creatures coming out from his most holy humanity and all tenderness. He told me, my daughter, look at the great prodigy of the Incarnation. As I was conceived and my humanity was formed, I made all creatures be reborn in me. So, in my humanity, as they were being reborn in me, I felt each one of their distinct acts. In my mind I contained each thought of creature, both good and evil. The good ones I confirmed in good. I surrounded them with my grace. I invested them with my light, so that being reborn from the sanctity of my mind, they might be worthy parts of my intelligence. For the evil ones then I repaired. I made penance. I multiplied my thoughts to infinity, in order to give to the Father the glory of each thought of creatures. In my gazes, in my words, in my hands, in my feet, and even in my heart, I contain the gazes, the words, the works, the steps, and the hearts of each one. And being reborn in me, everything remained confirmed in the sanctity of my humanity. Everything was repaired for, and for each offense I suffered a special pain. Then, having made all of them be reborn in me, I carried them within me through the whole course of my life. And do you know when I delivered them? I delivered them on the cross, on the bed of my bitter pains, among atrocious spasms, in the last breath of my life. As I died, they were born again to new life, all sealed and marked with the whole work of my humanity. Not content with having given them new birth, I gave to each one everything I had done so as to keep them sheltered and safe. Do you see what sanctity man contains? The sanctity of my humanity, which could never bring to light unworthy children, dissimilar from me. This is why I love man so much. He is a birth from me, but man is always ungrateful and reaches the point of not recognizing the Father who delivered him with so much love and pain. After this, he showed himself all in flames. Jesus was burned and consumed in those flames and could no longer be seen. I could see nothing but fire. But then I saw him being reborn again, to remain once again consumed in fire. Then he added, "My daughter, I am burning. Love consumes me. The flames that burn me are such that I die of love for each creature. It was not of pains alone that I died, but my deaths of love are continuous, yet there is no one who gives me his love for refreshment." October 18th, 1921. The disturbance of the soul is the night that prevents the Son of Jesus from rising. Disturbance is nothing other than lack of abandonment in God. I spent a day distracted because of a few things I heard which it is not necessary here to say, and also a little disturbed, and as much as I tried, I could not free myself. So for the entire day I did not see my sweet Jesus, the life of my soul, as if the disturbance were a veil which, placing itself between me and him, prevented me from being able to see him. Then, late at night, my mind, tired, calmed itself, and my lovable Jesus, as if he were waiting, made himself seen and sorrowful, told me, "My daughter, today with your disturbance you have prevented the sun of my person from rising in you. Disturbance is cloud between me and you, which prevents the rays from descending in you. And if the rays do not descend, how can you see the sun? If you knew what it means not to let my sun rise, and what great harm this is for you and for the whole world, you would well be attentive never to trouble yourself. In fact, it is always nighttime for disturbed souls, and at night the sun does not rise. On the other hand, it is always daylight for the peaceful ones, and at whatever hour my sun wants to rise, the soul is always ready to receive the good of my coming. Then, disturbance is nothing other than a lack of abandonment in me, and I want you so abandoned in my arms that you must not have even one thought for yourself. I will take care of everything. Do not fear. Your Jesus cannot do without taking care of you, keeping you sheltered from all. You cost me much. Much have I placed in you. I alone have right over you. Therefore, if the rights are mine, the custody will be all mine. So be at peace and do not fear. October 21st,